have to vote on
Ooh.
that.
Well, I don't know, Dave, this could take the whole 2 hours here.
I know.
Who's gonna be chair?
You are live.
That happened with the, was it the dam authority? Jim, were you taking minutes of that one?
No, Allison wants
Yeah,
to.
on how many votes they had before they could decide on the chair.
All right, so she says we're live, so whoever wants to.
I will, tell you what, I'll sit over here and get a better view here. Because if someone's watching, that'd be.
I need an agenda.
Yep, I'm gonna pass them right here.
Okay. I know there's not much on it, but
Nope.
I'd like to write notes. Thank you.
Tricia, one for you. Yeah, I assume, Dave, you have agenda?
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Since this is our first meeting of the year, we don't have a chairman. So if it's okay with both our commissioners, I'll just chair the brief part of the meeting until we get to that point. So I call the meeting to order. Jen, could you take roll call, please?
Yeah. Commissioner Rushton,
Present?
Commissioner Solis Little.
Here.
All right, and if I could ask our guest, Mr. Barron, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, moment of silence. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Barron, for doing this. On the agenda, I'd like to make one recommendation to you that we add the election, first on the agenda, the election of the chair, committee chair.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Dave.
I would move to appoint Patricia Solis Little as chairperson for
Okay,
this.
so right now, we're just approving the agenda.
Oh,
Like, you're a quick.
She was quick. I'm raising my hand.
I think there's a motive here. So I would recommend that we change the agenda, is that we add that to the beginning of the agenda, item number 1, election of the chair.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second?
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
2-0 for the record. A public comment, Mr. Barron, would you like to say something at this point? This is just public comment?
No.
Okay, if there is anyone watching, you can call 231-256-8109. That's 231-256-8109. Okay, we'll continue as the phone rings, I'll get it. Okay, since this is our first meeting of 2021, we do need to elect a chair of this committee. So I'll open up for nomination. Commissioner Rushton, go first.
Mr. Chairman, I would make the motion to appoint Patricia Solis Little as chair of this board.
Second.
Okay, any debate? Well stated, Chairman Rushton. Or chairperson? No. Commissioner Rushton,
Thank you.
chairperson. Okay. Do you graciously accept the nomination?
I do.
All right, okay. All those in favor of Patricia chairing it, say aye.
Aye.
I think it passed 2-0, so I will step down. And it's your meeting there, Patricia.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, Administrator. Let's move next to our approval of minutes for March 15th, 2020, which were in our packets. But I have a motion to approve.
Move to approve the minutes of March 15th, 2020.
Since there's only 2 of us, I guess I second. I second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We will consider the minutes approved.
Just a side note, Jennifer, if you look at the minutes, there were only 2 members in 2020.
Yeah, last time it was Will, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay.
We were questioning why there's only 2 members, but that's historically been the case.
And our second item on the agenda is the bench plaque donation request from Parks and Recreation Commission on behalf of the Leelanau Lake Association. And I suspect that our guest here would like to
Yes.
help with some discussion on that.
As you just
said Patricia, the Lake
Just for
Leelanau.
the record, so John can get it, could you just state your name and then?
Yes, I'm Dave Behrens, Elmwood Township, representing the Parks and Rec Commission and the Lake Leelanau Lake, the Fishing Committee of the Lake Leelanau Lake Association. That committee would like to place a commemorative bench at Veronica Valley Park astride near the one of the two fishing ponds, main fishing ponds in the front, commemorating the work of Pete Taylor, who is the godfather of the Kids Fishing Day. Kids Fishing Day, as I've learned now over the last 3 years, here at Veronica, put on by that fishing committee, is a model across the state, according to the DNR. They are always pointing to it as the best. So that's really due to Pete Taylor's work from all that I've learned. Now, he's been at it 15 years. I've only been associated with that whole effort for 3 years. But I've learned that everyone respects Pete deeply, and he's the one who's pulled together so much of the effort by various groups and individuals to pull off that event. So they simply want a bench with a 3x5 brass looking plaque. I don't know the wording that they've chosen yet to commemorate Pete, but they would like to have that in place by this year's fishing day, which is the last Sunday of June. They will pay for the bench in its entirety and the plaque.
It is true that Pete worked tirelessly on behalf of the Lake Leelanau community. He's really been a force. Commissioner Rushing.
Yes. I do have one question in regards to the plaque itself, and I'm going to direct this to the administrator. It seems to me historically, when we were looking at plaques and sizes, did we define the size of plaque that would be acceptable?
No, we said we did case by case, but we did say that before the county board approves it, they would like to see the final wording to make sure that you felt comfortable whatever was going to be placed on the plaque.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That discussion we had last year over some trees. Our attorney says not to have a policy review each case by case,
Okay.
so we don't set precedent. However, at that meeting, we came up with a procedure, not a policy, that any request, if it's from the parks, would go to the Parks and Recs, this committee, then to the board. If it was on this campus, it would bypass actually Parks and Recs from this committee, then to the board. But the final product, including the wording, should be approved by the board. So
That I didn't know the exact wording needed to be approved. I could have.
Yeah, but we have
perhaps had
time.
that.
because I assume if this committee approves it tonight, we'll put it on the May agenda, which still gives you time before the end of June. But we would need the final wording at that point. So we need the specific size of the bench and whatever wording is being proposed.
So the size of the bench, and we already know it's a 3x5
And
brass.
the location, specifically where you want the bench located.
One other issue I had raised prior to this meeting, I had a conversation with the administrator, because when this first request to me came to me, I was under the understanding that this would be a donation honoring a certain citizen, and that the funds would come from Parks and Rec. So I raised an issue with that. And since that time, the administrator looked into it, and we have discovered that this in fact is being donated by a nonprofit organization.
Right.
So at this point, I would like to make the motion to recommend to the Board of Commissioners that the bench and plaque donation request be approved with size of bench, size of brass plates, and final wording to be included for the full board's consideration.
And can we add and location?
And location, yes, thank you for that.
May I speak to a
Let me
couple of
second
points?
it. Now, go ahead. Seconding the motion. Now, please do, Dave, speak.
So that I can get the size of the bench, the Parks and Rec in our discussion has left it up to Scott Bradley, our park superintendent, to choose the bench frame and the materials for the seat in the back, based mostly on his experience with benches and which frames he likes, and also maintenance. I believe now the decision is coming down that it's going to be wood rather than composite material. But our recommendation to Scott has been that those decisions were actually his. The fishing committee has voiced they voiced that they have no opinion, no preference as to location. That again, coming from Parks and Rec to Scott Bradley, has been for him to pick the best location in terms of mowing and maintenance, that sort of thing.
Well, I appreciate you raising that issue about maintenance because that is something that we haven't discussed. If we go with wood, then, over time, we're looking at sanding and varnishing or painting or whatever. Personally, composite, I would say, is long-term, less maintenance. And what was there, whose position was it on between wood or composite? Was it the association or was it Parks and Rec?
No, and Parks and Rec really left it up to Scott Bradley to make that decision. I can't say for sure he's leaning towards wood. I sort of got that in the last discussion with him, but I can bring this up. And certainly if there's
So we'll have, assuming this passes this committee, by May 4th, which is the deadline for the board packet, I believe May 11th is the next executive committee meeting. So by that time, someone, whether Scott or your committee, has to come up with a specific location.
Well,
We can put it on a map so all the commissioners can see it,
Yes.
but just to avoid any confusion for, not just this project, but any project, before it comes to the board, there should be a specific location, specific size, wording on the plaque.
And really bring up the maintenance issue to Scott because there are some very attractive composite materials that look just like wood.
Oh, yes, and he had previously leaned that direction. I'll get that straight. I'll get that straight. Yeah, pass on the.
Well, that's decision they can make and then come to the board.
Yeah.
Right, and so I would like to amend my motion to include the type of material used for the bench, whether it's wood or composite, and the, who's gonna do the maintenance on this? Who's gonna be responsible for maintenance?
Just checking, so instead of amend, do you want me to add that to your motion?
Yes, I want you to add it.
All right, so let me go back, because I was writing amend, and so.
The bench composite or the bench material, and who will be responsible for maintenance, the cost of maintenance.
I can probably address that. Oh, do you agree with that?
Yes, yes.
Speak of it. But once it's donated, it becomes county property, so obviously we'd be responsible for the maintenance of it.
Well, I think it's gonna be important for the Board of Commissioners to understand if we take this on,
That's part
that
of
there
the
will be a
responsibility.
requirement for our Parks and Rec to perform the maintenance appropriate for the,
And,
Any other comments, Dave?
Well, question, do you already know a size that will be acceptable? The communication to the fish committee at this point has been 3 by 5. And that comes from Parks and Recs, Veronica Valley's discussion of donation policy. This was prior to your development. But so how does 3 by 5 sound?
is it 3 inch by 5 inch, or is it 3 feet by 5 feet?
3 inch by 5.
Good question. Well, there is no formal policy, so that's up to whoever submits the final request, this board approves it.
Fine,
That way,
that's fine.
you should have that information.
We had discussed this again in our discussions at Parks and Rec about size, and we had 3x5, but so we may start there, we'll see.
I would think 3x5 would be a standard size approximately, so.
And what's the standard size of a bench? Do you know? Is it
6
5
feet.
6 feet?
Yeah, I would say that's the average.
The type of frame that Scott Bradley showed me, this was now last fall, is actually 2 separate legs. It appears of extruded aluminum. He prefers it for installation purposes. I'm not sure of that, but he's already done some. I thought he had one in-house. I think he's already used it. Put it up at one of the other parks, but we'll have all that before November or May 4th.
And it would be helpful if you had a photo of the type of bench that he wants so that the commissioners can view the bench.
And I'm assuming, because you want to keep, and I'm sure you will, in good terms with the Lake Association, since they're paying for it, I would assume you would check with them. If they're all thinking it's gonna be one type of bench, and it's on a different type of bench shows up.
No, they've already communicated that they want us to pick the bench, pick the material, and pick the location, and that they are satisfied. Their preference is that it gets in before the last Sunday of June.
Okay.
So it's there for Pete this year.
Did they limit the dollar amount? No. Okay.
Any other discussion?
I think Scott has given Lonnie Rademacher, their chair, some sense of the cost from the catalog, but I don't,
Okay.
I
was just wondering about
And they
that.
haven't specified that they needed to keep it below a certain level or some such.
Okay.
Well, Dave, I'll be glad to work with you and Scott to come up with the final packet for the board for the May meeting. Just a comment to follow up on Commissioner Rushton's question. And this is important because we cannot, and by we, I say the county board or the Parks and Recs, cannot use tax dollars to fund any type of memorial. So can the Parks and Recs Commission buy a bench? The answer is yes. However, it's a bench honoring someone with a plaque and thing, then the answer is no. So that's a clarification that you were asking. And so if it's going to be honoring any individuals or cause or anything, no tax funds can be allocated.
Yeah, if it were just a bench in the park somewhere, then tax dollars could be spent. But not if it was associated with a tribute to an individual, there's a plaque on it.
Yeah, well, this has only come up because of their desire to do it as a donation, so.
Yeah, no, this makes
The
sense.
past history, at least since I've been here, the only bench that has approved was in honor of Connie Binsfield. And that was paid for by the Binsfield family, and that's a Post Office Park. It's a beautiful stone bench with a plaque. Actually, I think it's Connie and her husband John's name, both on it. But that was paid for by private funds.
Any other discussion? If not, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Thank you.
We have, and please convey to the Leelanau Lake Association my personal gratitude. I think this is a wonderful way to commemorate Pete Taylor. He did so much for our community.
I didn't start off by saying that the fishing committee is planning for the event this year. You will hear about the fish stocking at the May full commission meetings, stocking procedures we've gone through before, and those decisions, and our recommendation for that. But right now it is, they're planning, they're underway, but still holding fire yet on some COVID decision. So,
Thank you, Dave.
yes, thank you. Thank you both.
Thanks for your effort.
Chat. And I will certainly be pushing this information together immediately, and we'll be in touch.
And we can work, you and I and Scott can work together. Other proper materials for the May 11th meeting.
Any other board member comments?
I just want to say that I didn't know Pete Taylor personally, but what he has done for the children in our community is honorable. So thank you.
He ran ran the best meetings of volunteers that I've ever been part of. He knew, he had it organized, and he had everybody focused, and that was always an excellent operation.
He did, and he has a gentle way of
Absolutely.
never making people feel pushed to a side, and yet the ability to bring people to agreement on issues. It's very, you will be missed greatly.
Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, if there's any public comment, they can call.
231-256-8109.
So any members of the public wishing to comment, please call that number now. Hearing none. I think we need a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?